right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Something Super Podcast. I'm Steve.
I'm Mark.
And I'm Jay.
And guys, this week we have a friend of mine that has been a friend for almost 2 decades. We have my buddy Chris. Chris, give yourself an introduction.
What's going on, guys? My name is Chris. I stream on Twitch at cm3tv. I have an Instagram, cm3tv, and a Twitter, cm3tv. So it's pretty much the same down the line. I'm a huge nerd. We do a lot of Pokemon, Call of Duty, different types of story games like Final Fantasy VII, things like that on my stream. And I just love everything and anything nerdy. So I'm glad that I can be on here with you guys. I'm super excited to talk about a lot of stuff with you guys. I may not know as much as you guys after listening to some of the episodes. You guys are amazing and know so much. So I may not be on the same level, but I will try to keep up and do my best.
No, man, thank you so much. Seriously, I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of it is just our own research. I really do wish I had the same like comic knowledge as Mark and Jay, but I'm more on the lines of like TV series, live action series, and movies. So I've been, picking their brains. I got a million comics right here that I got to catch up on. And, for me, it's just one of those things that, Christ, I mean, even think back 10 years ago, like that, I didn't have as much interest in this, realm as I do now. So, that's just speaking for me. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely more of a DC guy. Obviously, as you know, like you bring the Marvel knowledge, I bring the DC knowledge. I just really do my homework for the most part. I used to be a big Pokemon fan, but I gave up after like Silver and Gold. After that, I was like at first, Professor Oak's like, oh, there's only 150 Pokemon. Yeah, fuck that shit. Like, you lying sack of shit. He definitely was just trying to get Ash to get out so he could get some cheeks with his mom. Like,
I mean,
theory confirmed.
Exactly. We can go down a lot of different routes to figure out who Ash's dad is if we want to do that. But that might be for another time.
All right. So,
yeah, no. What we want to do today is jump into Loki season or episode 2 of season 1. I think there's 6 episodes this season, if I'm not mistaken. So we're technically a third of the way through, and I mean it's already at the pace of the WandaVision season finale. So, Jay, I want to start with you so you can't say, oh, I have exactly what you guys have. What did you think of, what do you think of the series so far? And, just what are your thoughts as you're watching it?
You're muted.
Am I not muted now?
No, you're good.
My bad. I'm muted so you guys didn't hear me typing to actually get Chris's Twitch. My bad.
Thank you.
No, you're good.
But I said I'm mad that it took you one episode to call Lady Loki, but I'm so happy it happened. That ended up being who it is. And the supermarket scene with the magic where he walks in and he just dries himself off and they're like, look at him weird. And he's like, what? I didn't want to squeak around like the rest of you is probably one of my favorite things Loki did.
Dude, he just straight up, she looks at me. He's like, what did you do? He's like, I used my magic to dry myself.
Like I didn't want to squeak through the aisles like the rest of you.
So, Chris, what do you think of the series so far?
So, after watching the first 2 episodes, I really enjoyed it because I wasn't really big into like Thor, Loki. I didn't really know much about them. And going into this kind of blind is really cool because I'm learning so much from both sides as we go through. I did watch all the Thor movies. I do know like the backgrounds of most of it, but I don't know like the in-depthness of them. So my favorite part of it is it feels like they're humanizing Loki, and it makes it feel like we can relate to him where, oh my God, this dude's got to go to a 9 to 5 now. Like we all have to go to a 9 to 5 and he's got to start from the beginning. He's the rookie at this new job and he's got to kind of feel his way through and earn his keep at this new job. And he's got the boss that hates him. And then the one guy that sticks his neck out for him. And so many just people who have these 9 to 5s at these basic jobs can relate to that, like being the new guy at the job, not really wanting to do it, but have to do it. And I think it's really cool as things open back up and the workforce starts to grow again. I feel like more people will grow and gravitate to this Loki because he's one of us, essentially.
Absolutely. And I think, one of the big things, I think we said it in the first episode, like it is extremely important to note that this is not the Loki that we've come to know and love at, in Endgame that stuck his neck out for Thor. Like this is
Infinity War. He died.
Okay. Sorry. I apologize. Infinity War. Right. I mean, that's in the beginning of Endgame, so I'll give him that.
No, he dies at the beginning of Infinity War.
Does he?
Yeah, he dies at the very beginning of
Oh,
Infinity
I'm sorry.
War.
Whatever.
Because that's why Thor wants to go after him.
Yes.
Because
All right, so it's
Because
been
the
a
very
long night.
beginning of Endgame, Thor was like, I should have went for the head, and then takes off Thanos' head.
yeah.
Yes. All right. My apologies. I'm getting my movies mixed up. But
It's
that being
okay.
said, it's not that Loki. You know, this is still like, I'm a piece of shit. I'm trying to take
Dickhead.
over the world. Yeah. Like, and he shows you that through episode 2. Or at least he alludes to the fact that that is not his, real goal by working with the TVA, is that he is still trying to take over the world by now taking over the TVA because he knows what it is. Mark, give me, I guess, some of your thoughts and feelings on the episode, and then I really kind of want to dive into stuff that I noticed, like Easter eggs. If you want to start off on that.
No, I mean, for me personally, just watching between the first and second episode, I definitely agree with Chris. Like, you're really humanizing Loki. Like, literally, he's like, he asked Owen Wilson, he's like, why do you keep like sticking your neck out for me? He's like, it's one of 2 reasons. And one of the reasons he gives is like, I see a scared little child that never got any attention. And like, that's how it starts off in the first Thor. Like, they show Odin pick up Loki, and then Loki changes into like to look and resemble Odin rather than a frost giant, or an Asgardian rather than a frost giant. So you really are kind of seeing that, and those kind of themes play through. But for me, I'm just really loving like the pace and the fact that they kind of remind you that this is the older Loki. Like, the big question is, who is the superior Loki? And he keeps saying like, oh, I'm the superior one. And then you see they're flipping through the different variants. There's like a Hulk styled one. There's a straight out Viking one. There's a Tour de France Loki. Like, there's so many different ones. And then obviously now we're getting Lady Loki, or possibly Enchantress, or a combination of the 2, or whoever she's going to end up being. I personally think they're going to kind of do like, it's going to be Lady Loki with Enchantress type vibes, kind of a deal, only because you had Suicide Squad that did the Enchantress, and I don't think they want to cause that kind of confusion, even though there is a Marvel character Enchantress. But I don't know why, and I said this when we were watching it the other night together, Steve, like, there's just this dark undertone that's like,
Thanks for the invite.
You were at
school. So
thanks for the invite.
But like, there's this dark undertone. It's kind of like simmering, but you can feel it from time to time. Like, something is off, whether it's there's not really timekeepers, whether, like, me personally, I think that the timekeepers are an illusion. Like, that's why, like, Loki, he kind of gives that definition when they're like, oh, like, these are the powers he has. He's like, well, they're 2 different things. Like, one is I just make myself look different. Another one is I actually project an illusion of a copy of myself in a different time, like in a different space. So I think they're kind of playing on that illusion with the show itself. And obviously, I think the big bad could possibly, like we talked about in the last episode, could be a Kang the Conqueror. It could be the final TVA agent, or I forget what his technical name is. The one at the end.
The one that remains.
The one that remains. It could be him. Like, there's definitely some kind of darker undertone that we're getting into. And that's something that I'm really excited to see how they kind of, like, we're starting to see the madness in the multiverse.
Absolutely. A big thing for me, you had actually touched on it, and I know we had spoke about it before, was the Enchantress / Lady Loki sort of thing that they're dropping. Now, again, Marvel has its, quirks, especially in the movie realm. So for those of you that don't know, the Enchantress in the Marvel Universe is a character named Sylvie Lushton. And basically it was a body made for Lady Sif. Loki, as sort of like a joke, took it over, and it manifested into a character. And obviously Lady Loki is just a variant of Loki, black hair, the horns, the whole nine. Now this character seems to be an amalgamation of the 2. She has the horns like Lady Loki, but she has the blonde hair like Sylvie. And if you watch through all of the credits, they credit in, I believe it is
the Spanish version.
Sylvie is her character's name. So it's not to say that it is or isn't, but I could be leaning towards that. And again, maybe I'm searching for Easter eggs that aren't there, but hell, I'll take the Mephisto out of it all. So I have a couple different things that I really wanted to kind of point out real quick that I noticed throughout watching the episode. Huge fan of the fact that when Loki is reviewing his own file, he has the Revengers callback to Thor Ragnarok, which is one of my favorite Thor movies. Renslayer, she is obviously Kang the Conqueror's like love interest. So that's a big issue, like you said, that we could fall into later in the series. But she gives me this very like man behind the curtain vibe where there is someone like someone pulling the strings. It may not be the timekeepers. In the timekeepers could have existed at one point, and then like these people who are high up in the TVA like realized that they died and like shit, like this is not good. We got to figure out how to make this work still. And now they're just kind of like haphazardly making shit happen.
Well, to touch on both of those actually real quick, I don't know if you noticed this, but did you notice that the apocalypse that she was hiding in was a higher category than Asgard getting destroyed in Ragnarok?
Mm-hmm. The class 10 apocalypse.
It was a class 10 versus a class 7, which is interesting because it's like
total planetary destruction is only a 7. What is a 10?
Right. And how much higher does it go? Exactly. But also when we were in Ren's office, there was statues of the 3 timekeepers, and there was one in the middle that she looks at that doesn't have an hourglass. The other 2 do. So why wouldn't that third one have it? And I didn't mean to cut you off, but that kind of leads into the theory that I was thinking the other day is the rings on the table from Mobius's cup.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering, obviously, Mobius and Loki are hunting a variant Loki. In episode 1, we found out that there is another agent who Mobius doesn't know who it is. He just knows that they're the favorites. What if that agent is actually a variant of Mobius working with Lady Loki on the opposite side? So they're hunting like their evil counterparts kind of, and they're the ones that are actually trying to carry out Kang the Conqueror, Ren, whoever the big bad's plans.
Yeah. And obviously at this point, I give Marvel full credit that everything is a possibility. So that is one of my like side notes, like asterisk there. I can't trust her. But speaking of trust, when they're in the store and Loki says, trust me, like I'm good. I promise. Owen Wilson says, why is it always the people that say trust me are the people that you can't trust? Right. But that is an immediate callback to like 5 minutes before when he's sitting in Renslayer's office and he says those exact words. He says, trust me, I know what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. So to me, that says that Mobius knows that he's not trustworthy. He knows that he's doing something wrong. And I think, Mark, you and I had the conversation about this isn't the first time that this happened.
Right.
Like this may be his like 8th or 9th attempt at stopping this giant apocalypse and stopping, this bad Loki, because they talk about the one TVA agent. I don't know what his actual name is, but he's a dick. And he's like, oh, your favorite Loki's doing so. Like, he has a favorite. So right. I don't know how many other Lokis he's worked with or how many other Lokis he's interacted with, but I just think it's pretty cool that, there is so much more to this character, obviously Mobius and then the Loki interaction than is just on the surface. And it's all up for interpretation, but.
Well, the way I looked at it was coming back to them having the files on the different variants, and they say they have like different powers. So I don't know if he's ever worked with a Loki, but I mean, obviously he has knowledge of multiple Lokis, their powers and stuff. So I think when he says like, oh, it's your favorite one, I think maybe it's literally just like you watching, say, like Bruce Willis movies, like, oh, that's my favorite Bruce Willis character, rather than like, oh, I've like, you've never met Bruce Willis to my knowledge, but like, that's your favorite character. That's kind of the way that I read into that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the one thing that I found puzzling, coming back to like Owen Wilson saying, don't trust me in movies, is when Lady Loki opens the door after she drops the bombs and she runs in and it stays open for our Loki. Mobius and the other TVA agents are chasing after him. Loki's standing still, but he's telling Loki to wait. Like slow down, wait, like don't, like, it's like he's not moving. So why are you telling him, hold on, like this and that? Like, I guess you could say for him not to step in, but I think Mobius was kind of like hinting, like hint, wink, wink, like, yo, we have a line on her, like, go. So I think it's kind of like a trust among thieves kind of a thing where it's like, he knows he can't trust Loki, but he knows he can trust this Loki enough.
Yeah. And he's basically like, like Loki said before they stepped into that timeline was, I'm your best option at catching a murderer. Like that's where we're at right now.
Right.
So
like Jag, what do you guys think? I know me and Steve are kind of taking it over. Do you guys have any comments on like any of the theories that we have? Is it anything that maybe you guys caught or anything?
I'm wondering if they're going to use the end of the episode where Lady Loki, Enchantress, whoever she ends up being, is actually going to be the start of for Doctor Strange's Into the Multiverse, because of how all the lines went. She basically just created a brand new multiverse.
Yeah, I mean that's however we don't know how many branches exactly, but
that was a fucking shit ton.
There was a ton of branches, and then basically it's all happening at the same time. So like
we know at least like 13 or 14 just because of what they showed on the screens.
Yeah.
Between Ren's screen and then the main one.
Yeah.
Between those two, we know it's at least probably like 13. And we also know from their conversation in the cafeteria that the timekeepers, it isn't like solid yet. They're still working to solidify the sacred timeline. So right now it's still very what's the word I'm looking for? Like
fluid.
Yes. Like fracturable.
No, yeah, and I like the fact that like I said, I'm fresh eyes to this whole sort of background. So it's cool to hear you guys bouncing off all these ideas, and it's opening like my mind, like, oh my God, I didn't even think these things could happen. And like I'm like so narrow-minded watching it. And now when I go to watch these episodes again in the next episodes, I'm going to be thinking into the multiverse, because you guys are literally opening my mind like a multiverse right now with all of the theories you have. And it's really cool because I was watching a few things the other day because Spider-Man's my favorite Marvel character. So I keep seeing these theories and fan fictions on how they're going to bring the other Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield in. And I think this might be a way for them to bring them in as well. And I listen, I'm not the biggest fan of the Andrew Garfield ones. Tobey Maguire, I thought, killed it. I love Tom Holland. I think he does an amazing job too as well. But I would love to see all those characters brought in, and it's a way to introduce the Sinister Six as well from Spider-Man, because you can take the villains from all the different movies and attach them, because most of the villains from the movies that we've seen so far were part of the Sinister Six. And it would be cool if this was the way to tie in Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, and the TVA all together, which would be really cool.
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to be honest with you, like that is probably the thing that I'm looking forward to the most, is having that like live action Into the Spider-Verse-esque movie. I think it would be super cool. I know Doc Ock did confirm that he is the like worst kept secret in Hollywood. So I would love to see a Tobey Maguire back on the screen. Again, I can totally feel you with the Andrew Garfield thing. Like I thought he played a good Spider-Man because he was a smartass, but I'm sorry, maybe it's just me. Yeah, he's a good looking dude. Like I can't even deny it. Like he is not a good Peter Parker.
Agreed.
Tobey Maguire was a great Peter Parker. Andrew Garfield was a great.
No, he was not.
Tobey Maguire was a good Peter Parker. Andrew Garfield was a good Spider-Man. Tom Holland is both.
Oh, absolutely.
Agreed.
How is Tobey Maguire a good Peter Parker? Peter Parker was not a depressed kid that just like looked like he wanted to slit his wrist every day.
All right, first of all,
he went through a depressing event.
That was like a 40,
but he's not a depressed kid.
That was like a 45-minute part of one movie that was fucking very poorly written
through the whole thing. All three movies.
All right, no. So if you give him like super moody in the third one, I'm gonna blame Venom for that.
And that's what I'm saying. It was poorly written. Like
Sam Raimi didn't do him justice as an actor, and I'm not. There's nothing against Sam Raimi. It's nothing against.
No, it was all the studio. The studio wanted this big blockbuster movie, and they just threw way too much into it. But go off what Chris was saying though, and about the multiverse and everything. Maybe this is how now we bring Tom Hardy's Venom in. Maybe this is how we bring Carnage in. Maybe, like you were saying, with Jamie Foxx is returning as Electro. We have, I forget the actor's name, but Doc Ock's coming back. There's rumors that we're getting the Green Goblin, and
that would be fantastic.
And the Green Goblin is going to be like the one that's overseeing everything and basically doing a Sinister Six. Well, now, I don't know who the six are going to be, because in the comics it's always interchanging, but usually it's always. Usually you always have Doc Ock, you usually always have Green Arrow, Green Goblin, and you usually always have Electro. From there, it's
what about Vulture?
Well, they did introduce him.
So they could do Vulture, but I mean, usually it's a combination of Vulture, Scorpion, Rhino. Like there's a whole swarm. There's a whole plethora of other villains that like pop in and out of the Sinister Six. But
and they just
Do you
dropped
think we
the
could-
Aaron Taylor Johnson Craven the Hunter.
Right.
You think we're gonna
So-
see Morbius somehow in the movie because they're talking about Vulture being in his?
so obviously Spider-Man is in the Morbius trailer. I know we're getting way off track, but
Yeah, I
who
know, we're
cares?
going-
Sorry, no. I love
But
it.
yeah, but like you see him, but I don't know if you'll actually get like a Morbius in a Spider-Man movie because honestly, like I think Morbius might link more into Blade because I know they're getting ready to do Blade, and with him being a vampire, that would be a more likely.
But he's a
crossover.
living vampire.
Right, but I mean, you can only do so much. Like this would be like if you really wanted to do like an 8-hour Spider-Man movie.
I'm
Like
about it.
if Zack
I mean-
Snyder, if we want to get a Snyder cut of Spider-Man, like don't get me wrong, you could have all these characters in there in Morbius, but as far as I know, with Doctor Strange, the main villain is going to be Wanda. Like they're setting her up to be a big bad, and who knows? Like WandaVision was supposed to be like the fourth thing released, not first.
Yeah.
So Wanda, I feel her whole story in WandaVision ties more into Loki now. And whatever I think happens at the end of Loki could either justify how her powers worked there, or it could make her stronger. She's a Nexus being. And like they said, Nexus events are accidents.
Yeah.
So it's like there's
Well,
many routes that everything could go.
You know what's really cool too is you touched on that, how like you said we're getting a little off topic, but I think we're still on topic because this show
Right.
is making us think about all these other heroes and villains and any way it can be tied in. Like I think this show is literally just a catalyst. Like Loki is maybe the name of the show and maybe the main character, but it's so much bigger than him and this show and this character, and it's just what's going to start the rest of these conversations and the rest of these movies and shows.
Are you ready, Chris?
Absolutely.
I want to hear some from like a fresh set of eyes. Like you said, sometimes they're pretty straight-minded. So you've seen all the Thor movies, Thor 1, Ragnarok, you've seen Infinity War, you've seen Endgame, all that. So you've seen Loki's story.
Yes.
Now, how do you think, if you think it's going to change, how do you think his progression will change now in phase 4? Because obviously it's a different Loki, so he's not going to have those key events to drive him to where he becomes like an ally of Thor. Like, do you think he's going to still follow that same path? Or do you think he's just going to become a bigger dickhead?
So based on that's a great way to say it. But based off of the what we've seen and what we're hearing, the fact that he got to see the events and not experience them, I think is still going to hit him. I think that's still going to be a big part of him. I think we're not going to have this justified like superhero Loki, but I think we're still going to get a guy that deep down realizes, because of what Owen Wilson is teaching him and working him through, I think that's going to be the catalyst to bring out this good guy Loki. I think instead of actually going through his mother's death and all of the events he did leading up to his death, I think Owen Wilson is going to use his ability to try to pull, and that's why he's so invested in this Loki, because this is probably the first Loki that he's seen or interacted with that he feels can go along the same path of the Loki that died. And I think that's why he's so invested. And so I don't think it has anything to do with catching the variant. I think he really, truly believes that this Loki is a Loki he can change and make good, and either continue to be his partner or put him back into the timeline where he died and have him just pick up from where he left off.
Oh, so I actually like the fact that you just brought putting him back in the timeline. So as the TVA goes, everything has to go back to the way it was when things change. So like when the branch happens, you got to prune it, put it back to normal. How bad would it be for Loki if now that he has all of this information, he knows he is the fault for his mother's death, he knows he is going to sacrifice himself for Thor. You know how it ends. They drop him back at the tower in New York with the Tesseract, and you now having the knowledge, have to be that guy. You know you have to kill your own mother because Mobius said it. It's happened a million times. It'll happen a million more, and it always happens like this. She always dies. There's no two ways about it that will cause a branch. He knows that at the end of the day, he's got to attempt to attack Thanos, and he knows he's going to get killed. So like,
now that's under sacred timeline rules. Now,
Sure.
if this breaks it, do those rules still apply?
No.
Again, I think I don't know exactly how it works because, you know, time travel. But that being said, I don't know that they could or couldn't drop him off anywhere. But again, I think this might be and I think I'd mentioned it before, the timeline between New York and Sakaar. So even if they just drop him off at Sakaar and they call it a day, like, all right, all this other shit happened already, we're cool. You know, I don't know. I'm gonna be honest with you. It's one of those tough questions. Like I don't know where they're gonna drop him off, if they even drop him back off.
Then where was Doctor Strange looking? Because if there's a sacred timeline, that means everything's gonna happen a specific way. And he's like, I looked at 6 million different ways.
He was looking at outcomes. So the first outcome could have just been like, what if Iron Man did the snap? The second one could be like, what if Black Panther did the snap? What if Captain Marvel did the snap?
But it's a sacred timeline. There shouldn't be there's one
No,
way.
but he was basically playing out the different scenarios. So he was looking through, in my opinion, he was looking through a multiverse of outcomes.
Yeah.
And in all those outcomes, there was one. So this is something me and Steve were kind of talking about is it right now, obviously, I think there is a multiverse, but I think they all fall under like the same timeline. Like they're all running parallel as to where before they were kind of like intertwining. And something they brought up like after we watched it was when they're looking at the meter, it only can go up to like 5 units before you hit that red barrier. What if that red barrier is actually another universe? So say we're in universe, whatever the original was, 616. 616. Yeah. So what if the red line that they were approaching, like when Loki was trying to buy time, was actually like universe 1, and maybe the next time it was actually universe 2. So what the timekeepers are actually doing, or TVA is trying to do, is they're lying about there being multiverses. That's why the one agent was sitting on the floor saying like, it's all real. I want to go home. It's all real. It's all real. It's all real. Because they're being told there is no multiverse. There's one timeline and that's what it goes. Now, maybe the right Lady Loki opened her eyes to like, yo, you're being lied to. Now they're questioning everything. And really what they're trying to prevent is them clashing, because that's what the Miss Minutes video was about, was like, oh, like there was a war where timelines were crashing. So maybe that's what the red line is, and that's what they're trying to prevent to help stabilize the sacred timeline.
And that would also tie into like the timekeepers don't exist anymore thing. Like maybe everything is threaded together up into whenever the timekeepers died, but now they're just like, all right, like just keep shit the way that it was, please. Let's not fuck with this. All right.
I'm making this difficult.
It's time travel, man. It's multiversal theory, something that Marvel made up.
I'm just saying, they're just like, come on, guys, stop making this shit difficult on us.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I mean, it's just like Hulk 2 in Endgame when he's trying to explain how time travels works. He's like, you can't go back and change the past. Like that just becomes your new future. Yeah. Like, so it's the way that they're running. But on the computer, when Loki's actually like reading the jet ski magazine, there's like a math equation on the computer. And it says it's something along the lines of like, if Thanos has 5 apples and he eats 2, but then goes back in time and takes 2 from there, how many would he really have? And the 3 answers are actually like 3 different ways that time travel is explained across different movies. So one's like, oh, like they run parallel and it wouldn't change anything. One is like, if you change something in the past, it will change the future. And then like there was another, I forget what the third one was.
The grandfather paradox. It's the
right.
The
like it's going to happen.
Yes.
It's going to happen no matter what. So, and then it's just kind of funny because it's like, even Marvel's kind of hinting at like, we don't really know how we're playing the time travel thing. Like, because you get one explanation from Hulk, you get another one from Tony, you get this one now from the TVA, to where, because he even said, he's like, why don't you just go back before like she attacked? He's like, oh, we can't. It's like, oh, okay.
I'm actually glad you brought up the other people's time travel theories. So this is a callback to when Tony discovered time travel and how it was going to work. The thing that like the 3D model that he had was actually called a Mobius strip.
Mm-hmm.
So we have Mobius and Mobius. I think that's a super cool tie-in. Obviously, I'm sure that there was a reasoning for that, obviously. So, I love all of the the continuity. I think Marvel does extremely well with continuity in everything. And I'm sorry, Chris, except Spider-Man, because Spider-Man uses hard
Fair.
dates. And it's
Fair.
not that anyone does anything wrong. It's just that they like Tom
do
Holland,
everything wrong.
his passport had like a hard date on it, like his birth date or whatever year it was, and like it just didn't line up. Or when they did the first movie and it was like, all right, this was 8 years after this event, when in reality it was like 10 years, whatever the case was. But I think they tried to do too many hard dates in that, and it's tough because they're not going back in time. They're still moving forward with the timeline, and now it's like 2023. We're ahead of where we are in the real world, so now it's just getting tricky. So I get it, but yeah, I love the fact that they tie everything together. It doesn't matter what it is. Like I said, they had the Revengers reference, they got the Mobius strip reference, like because of Mobius, and there's just so much other fantastic continuity throughout the entire thing. Now, I guess, Mark, since you mentioned that WandaVision wasn't supposed to be the first series, I got to look at like a timeline now. Like, where does the series fall? Where do each series fall? Because in WandaVision, at the end, she heard her children calling for her, but they're not alive in this universe. Or
Right.
this, yeah. So like, there is obviously a multiverse. Now, again, whether that's because of Loki or again the other theory that it's always existed, but they are in a different timeline. So I'm curious to see where this is going to take us.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it really quick, because if I'm not mistaken, I think Captain or Falcon and Winter Soldier, I think, was supposed to be first. Then I think, or no, Black Widow movie was supposed to be first, but I don't know if that's going to actually play in any of this other stuff, or if that's going to be more like flashback. Because so that was supposed to be the first thing released, but then obviously due to COVID, they had to cancel filming and all that kind of stuff, and then reboot it back up. Then after that, I think it's supposed to be Falcon and Winter Soldier. And there was even stuff in there that ended up getting cut out. Then I think it was supposed to be WandaVision, then Loki, then Doctor Strange.
So I actually have it's an extremely wildly long list, a 74 item list of everything from the movies to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to Iron Fist, Daredevil, Luke Cage, like the whole nine. So it's supposed to be Loki, WandaVision, Falcon. And then
what it was supposed to be?
Then Spider-Man. Is that Spider-Man Far From Home is the last thing on the list? That's interesting.
Really? Because see, the one I'm looking at was supposed to be, unless. Yeah, like it was supposed, the one I'm seeing is it was supposed to be Spider-Man Far From Home, Falcon and Winter Soldier, Black Widow, then WandaVision, then Eternals, then Loki, Shang-Chi, Hawkeye, and then Thor, Love and Thunder, then Spider-Man 3, then Doctor Strange.
Okay. So yeah, the only reason the list, I guess, has Loki first is, and it says in parentheses, allowing for alternate timeline weirdness. So I'll give it, I want to see a hard list from Marvel before I give any deciding factors on that, but I'm excited to see what they're looking at.
Right. And I mean, like we were saying, obviously, like WandaVision took place technically, I guess you could really say, in its own timeline inside of the Hex.
Mm-hmm.
Like they traveled through the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, up, like literally had a different decade, like every day. So she was kind of time traveling. Granted, she can warp reality. So to her, time is literally nothing.
Exactly.
It's whatever she wants it to be. So I call her an outlier, but as opposed to like Falcon and Winter Soldier, like they're just people.
Yep.
For the most part. Like they don't have anything super crazy about them.
Are we actually going to call that time travel, which she did, considering the fact that it was at a given date in modern time and she just warped everything around it to match that timeline or match that error?
But that's what we're saying. That's what I'm saying.
Like, does that actually count as time travel, or is that just fucking warping? Well, that's where it's a decade, I guess.
Well, that's where it's a gray area because she can warp time. So if she wanted to, she could make it the 1950s.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if I put you in a town that only has 1950s technology, you can't do anything past the 1950s.
Yeah. But does that change that it was 2021 when she was doing this?
But outside, that's what I'm saying. Outside the Hex it was, and technically it was 2024.
Whatever. I don't
That's where Marvel's technically at right now. But like that's what I'm saying. It's open to interpretation. Like for me, I would say if I'm only have this limited technology and I can't use it further, then yes, I'm in that time period. As opposed,
and again, now that we are aware that she is like the most powerful person in the MCU currently, I mean, who's to say that she can't create the hex and then actually time travel? And I mean, obviously, again, there's the warping of reality, but who's to say that like, she didn't actually create like a pocket dimension in there that, and that's like they were traveling through time each day. Like,
right.
It's not completely out of the question. It's not off base to say that like, all right, this is a possibility.
And that's where I'm going with it, is like that one. It's kind of like an outlier because it's kind of up to your own interpretation as to where like right now we're literally jumping through time.
Yes. One big thing I wanted to point out, again, along the lines of Loki's powers and there being multiple Lokis.
Roombas.
So I thought, but yeah, besides the fact that I had no idea he had that power, like telekinesis, like that was super cool. But and he only used vacuums to fight the other Loki. But
I think that was a strategic thing. Personally, I think he knows that he's going up against someone who knows what he does. Like she has knowledge of the timekeepers.
Sure.
So clearly she knows more than she's letting on, just like he always knows more than he's letting on. So I think he was also trying to get information out of her. So he was kind of stalling.
Yeah.
But it ended up playing against him in this case because she wanted him to stall time.
Oh, definitely. And in the beginning, when they first walked into Rock's cart, which I think is super cool because it's a callback to Spider-Man's Rock's On Corp. It's like their Walmart, basically. Now they walk up to the guy who's shopping for azaleas in the hurricane storm. One, the fact that they have a hurricane sale. Yeah, like this happens frequently enough that like this is a thing. All right, cool. We're just gonna work past that for a second. When the TVA agent gets taken over and the guy's body drops to the floor, Loki says, "Is he dead?" Which means he has never used or encountered that power before because he had no idea what the outcome was. And the power is called enchantment, which leads me to the enchantress thing. And that's kind of that's my Mephisto for this episode. But it really did. Shut up, Jay. I'm riding that train till the wheels fall off.
I think the wheels damn fell off already, bro.
That's fine. We are skidding down the track.
The creators of Loki straight up said it's literally just a happy coincidence.
I'm cool with it. So, yeah, it's very much, there's a lot of tie-in things, but I think we're going to see more than one Loki. And I think there's going to be interactions with multiple different variants of Loki, which I think is pretty cool.
El Presidente.
Yeah, the presidential Loki. I can't wait for that one because I want to see what his what his campaign was. What was he doing to what were you running on? Like how did you get to where you are now?
You've realized he could honestly just take over the minds of everybody and just be like, vote for me.
Or he actually won the battle in New York.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool too. Well, yeah, because it does look like a post-apocalyptic sort of look to the landscape that they walk through, at least in the trailer.
And I mean, if you think about it, if he would have won that, it would have been a huge alien war, which would have allowed Thanos to come in uncontested by the Avengers, do his snap. So now there's less people, so it's easier for Loki to rule. Granted, he's got no power or anything. He's just a headstone ruler of this broken planet now, but it's possible.
But I think
in that situation, do you think the same superheroes would still be alive? Like we're talking like Cap, Black Widow.
If they are,
it would depend on if he killed them in the battle too.
Yeah, so even if Thanos did the snap, the battle itself may have taken out a bunch of people because when Thanos came through, you know what though? He wouldn't have been able to do the snap right after the battle in New York because he didn't have all the Infinity Stones. So I think
and Vision didn't have his yet. So where was he getting that one from?
Vision wasn't even created.
Well,
that was the scepter.
He would have gotten that one. He was because remember in Endgame they say all three. There's 3 stones at that time and period. He would have had the Tesseract. He would have had the Mind Stone and the Time Stone. All of those.
Where was the Mind Stone at that point?
The Mind Stone is the scepter.
Yes, the Mind Stone's in the scepter.
That's why he was able to take over like Hawkeye and all the people.
Oh, I thought that was just Tesseract. I'm being an
No,
idiot.
Tesseract
No,
is
it's
a
okay.
space stone. So then he would have only, and I think he already had. No, he didn't. The Power Stone was in Guardians, which I believe at that time he was already planning his attack on Xander.
Yeah.
So he was already in the process of getting ready to get that one. He already had the gauntlet made. So like he literally would have been uncontested. So I think the same Avengers would have been snapped away if they survived the Battle of New York.
Sure. And again, not surviving the Battle of New York would lead to that sort of wastelandy-esque.
Wait, can we also talk how we think Hulk would be at that point? Because that was angry Hulk. That's not like
that would have
intelligence Hulk.
That would have been the best thing to fight against Thanos, strictly for brute strength and force. But I still don't think he would have won because he was still kind of angry.
It's not like you can't kill him.
So it depends. Are we going?
And the stronger the angrier he gets, the stronger he gets.
Are we going OP comic book Hulk? Because if he goes to like World Breaker Hulk status, like then he can compete with Thanos. But like
Thanos is too agile, and he's able to think on his feet, and he has the strength. So like it's not like Hulk just has the strength, and the angrier he gets, the stronger he gets. But Hulk doesn't think linearly. He's very much like the timeline right now. It's just cracked. There's a million different branches and it goes off in a million different directions. So,
and like based off the fight they previously had in the movie, it looks like Thanos has some sort of martial arts, wrestling, judo background because he actually was doing actual moves when they were fighting. It wasn't just like, I'm going to punch you till you die.
Yeah.
He was like dipping, dodging, doing like judo throws. Like, so he probably has some sort of formal background training. Hulk is, like you said, just brute Hulk smash.
Yes.
But it works.
It does. I love Hulk. I agree. It does work.
Yeah, I'd like to see them do like a Thunderbolt Ross, Gray Hulk type thing. I think that would be super cool. But Red Hulk.
Whoa.
Gray Hulk was when Banner and Hulk first merged to become Professor Hulk.
Yes. So
arguably that's what it was supposed to be in Age of Ultron. Yeah. Like originally when he was leaving, he was supposed to have like a gray tint to him as like an Easter egg to that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. So
wow, we got real off track.
Yeah, and that's fine. Like Chris said, I think that when you're speaking multiverse theory and you're speaking Marvel movies, there really is no off track. Everything now is connected via a million different. I'm like Charlie Day. I got a fucking board over here with red lines on it, and I'm going crazy. But
wait, I got one thing I gotta add to this just because I saw it, it made me giggle.
Hit it.
So so one of the computer brands I like plugged it. They're like, look, we're even in Loki, because you could see on one of the signs in the aisles, you could see not Alienware, Razor. You could see it at the edge of the thing. It says Razor stuff. That's cool. And I just started dying laughing.
Can we just take a moment of silence though for Mobius's salad?
Oh yeah.
Oh, dude. You know what? Fuck him.
I think that was in response to him being like, all right, I'm going to park you here and, work like your life depends on it. Cause it kind of does. Like, I'm going to fuck your lunch up.
Can we just go back to like older Steve who hated anything that has any veggies in it and get that response?
I still don't eat salad. So yeah, I'm going to say destroy the salad. I'm cool with it. But I mean, as far as Loki episode 2 goes, that's really all I've got. I'm definitely looking forward to 3 this week. And, obviously we're going to do our coverage on that. So,
and I won't get invited again to watch.
I'll invite you to watch, whether you show up or not. It's up to you, bud.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Fair parts, bud.
All right, Jay, what do you got to wrap up?
Nothing. That was my last thing, just because it doesn't actually relate to the show. I just saw it as funny that Razor used Loki as a plug for themselves. And I just thought it was funny. Also, I think it's crazy there's no other computers made since then. Like, it's still Alienware, Razor, and shit.
Well, I mean, they have a monopoly and they cornered the market.
To be fair, there's going to be about 7 different apocalypse events in the United States alone in the next 20 years, according to Loki. So I don't see that bright of a future ahead of us anyway.
They didn't say Philly in any of them.
Yeah, that's because we're already dead.
Yeah, we're already in apocalyptic wasteland. We're good. We survived.
Major cities, they go away. All right, Mark.
No, I mean, that was really the only things that I had. The only other thing is I'm curious to see, number one, what other variants we meet. Because, like, if this one's hiding out in Apocalypse, like, we've already seen the volcano. Now we've seen the hurricane and the tidal wave. In the trailer, like, when we first were covering the trailer, Jay, you were talking about how, like, we thought that it was Loki sitting with Black Widow on whatever.
Oh,
And
yeah,
it
that
turns
post
out it's
apocalypse.
Yeah.
right. And one of the apocalypses that he mentions is like a meteor strike, which you see in the trailer, and supernova. So what I'm wondering is if we're going to see other variants hiding out in apocalypses, or if we might actually get like a Loki army type of a deal where it's
That
like
would be
all the
awesome.
variants band together. Like, but just one part that I found really, really funny. It happens so quick. I don't know if you noticed it. So in the first Avengers movie, Hulk just straight up beats the shit out of Loki, just slams him back and forth, back and forth. Puny God. When they're flipping through and they're showing him the different variants, one has like a Hulk type body, and he gets like this really scared and confused look on his face for a second of just sheer like disbelief. He's just like, what the hell? Like, and then, but I want to get the vote. I want the Viking Loki. I think that honestly was one of the best looks, the best attires.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I love the variants that they have. I would love to see those come to life. However, they managed to do it. Yeah, that I mean, that's one that's just like the presidential one. Like, what did you do? What happened that made you want to join the Tour de France? Was it just to beat Lance Armstrong, or like what? What was your,
another bet to Thor?
The best biker.
Absolutely,
the best biker.
So,
a biker that
Chris,
didn't have to cheat.
Yes, that is, well, I mean, magic. So, but
Not cheating.
Chris, before we wrap up here, again, I want you to plug yourself, and I want to give you something super swag. Obviously,
nice.
you don't live too far away, but I do have a trivia question for you.
Okay, all right.
This is the best part about it. It has absolutely nothing to do with Marvel.
Okay, all right.
So this goes back to when Chris and I first met.
Oh,
6th grade. These are the good old days. Do you remember? Because we were on the bowling team together.
Yes, we were. Yes, we were.
What was our team name?
Oh my God. Oh, dude, I remember it vividly. I don't remember the team name, but I remember it vividly. You, me, Mr. Coombs was DJ, or no, it was somebody you knew was DJing.
Yeah, it's probably my dad occasionally.
Your dad was DJing occasionally. I remember that. A lot of Nirvana, Smells Like Teen Spirit.
That was like the song.
Oh,
everyone requested
that.
that.
Yeah, I would get hyped up. I'd get ready to bowl a gutter ball right when that song came on. But Senor Coombs, shout out to Senor Coombs. He was the only guy there watching us all bowl. There was like 50 kids sprawled out through the lanes, and he was trying to keep an eye on us, and he couldn't.
I appreciate that, man.
Oh, yeah. Great guy. Told us he was related to Puff Daddy because his last name was Coombs, but we didn't believe it. But I do not remember the name. You're gonna have to refresh me on that.
All right. So it was a reference to The Simpsons. I was like, I forget which episode it was, but basically each person was telling a different character something. And by the end, it turned into this just like a completely absurd phrase, I guess, turn of phrase that would. But even if you can't guess it, I'm still going to give you some stuff. But I thought it was hilarious. And I was actually having a conversation with someone, and I was like, holy shit, like, I can't believe, like, first of all, that I've known Chris for this long. Second, that we were on a bowling team, like, and we were the baddest kids on the block.
Fact.
But I don't remember, like, distinctively winning that frequently, but I think we had the best time.
Oh, yeah.
Our team name was the Purple Monkey Dishwashers.
Oh, my God. That literally just jolted back into my head when you said purple. And I know I'm that dumb and goofy that I definitely thought that was the funniest thing in the world.
Oh, absolutely. We all co-signed that, like, there was like the cool, like, the kids were like, oh yeah, we're going to be like the bad bowlers. Or like, yeah, we're the strikes. Like, no, we thought of the most absurd team name that we could possibly think of. And like I said, I'm pretty sure we all just sucked. But that made it awesome.
I'm pretty sure you guys had the best name I've ever heard.
Appreciate it. I definitely saw that. Remember that.
I would be on that team.
Everybody wanted to. We were the guys. We were the worst team, but we had the coolest team.
So I can't remember. So I know Amber was on our team as well.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think there was a fourth person maybe.
I think it was Robbie.
Okay.
I think it was Robbie Hines. I think he was on our team. I think he was the fourth.
Oh man, those were the good old days, man.
They were. We had a lot of fun back then.
All right, Chris. So again, before we wrap up, I want you to plug your stuff.
Perfect. All right. So my name's Chris. I also go by cm3tv. You can find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/cm3tv. Find me on Instagram, cm3tv. You can find me on Twitter. The Twitter's a little bit jumbled. I just remembered it's ttv.cm3tv because they wouldn't let me do cm3tv. Don't know why. But those are the 3 places you can find me. I'm live typically Sunday through Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Like I said, Monday through Thursday, it's all video games. And then Friday and Sundays, we open up Pokemon cards and sports cards live on stream for people. So we get pretty hyped. We get pretty excited. Our group is called the Jelly Squad. So when you sub, you become a member of the Jelly Squad, and you get little cool emotes like that have Charmander eating a jelly donut, because I'm a Pokemon nerd. But I really appreciate you guys for having me on. Thank you guys so much. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming and joining us. All right, guys. Now it's time for us to plug our own stuff. So you know where we're at Something Super Podcast on Instagram, at Something Super Podcast on Facebook. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, somethingsuperpodcast@gmail.com. We are also on Twitter, SSPodcast52. We are on all of your major streaming platforms. That includes Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor. Thank you for always being our host. All right, guys. For this one, I'm Steve.
I'm Mark.
And I'm Jay.
And we'll catch you guys next week.